You were told to chase, so you ran. For love, for money, for meaning, like shadows just beyond your grasp. But what if everything you've been taught is backwards? What if chasing is the very thing that pushes what you desire further away? How many times have you wanted something so deeply, so desperately, that it consumed your thoughts, only to watch it slip through your hands? And then one day, without trying, you let go. You stopped pushing, you exhaled, and somehow it appeared. Effortlessly. Was it a fluke? Number, it was alignment, an ancient law buried in stillness, whispered by sages and hidden in plain sight, reveals this truth. What you chase runs. What you embody arrives. This is not wishful thinking. This is spiritual physics, a quantum shift in how reality mirrors your frequency. And once you understand this law, you'll stop chasing life and begin allowing it. You've been taught to reach harder, to hustle louder, as if effort alone could pull life closer. But in the quantum realm, the opposite often holds true. The more desperate your grasp, the more you emit a frequency of lack. And the universe, ever responsive, mirrors that back to you. Desire is not the problem. But when desire is steeped in fear, in insufficiency, in the quiet panic of, what if I never get it? You repel what you seek like a magnet flipped the wrong way. This is the ancient paradox, a principle so old it's woven into Taoist silence and Zen stillness. The backwards law, the more you chase, the more it runs. The more tightly you hold, the more it slips away. It doesn't mean you shouldn't want, it means you must stop needing. Because need is not neutral, it distorts your signal. It tells life, I am not whole until this arrives. But life doesn't respond to words, it responds to frequency. Picture yourself standing before a calm lake. You want to see your reflection, but the more you splash, the more chaos you create. Only in stillness does the image become clear. So it is with manifestation. The frantic mind creates ripples. Ripples that block what was already waiting for you. We've been taught to grind, to chase, to overexert until we collapse. But those who seem most aligned with abundance often appear effortless, detached but not disinterested, intentional yet calm. Why? Because they're not trying to convince reality. They've already become the match. You see, the subconscious, that silent engine shaping 95% of your actions, does not understand ambition as logic. It only hears tone, vibration, emotion. And when your vibration screams, I don't have it, your reality responds, then you won't. So you read more books, try new strategies, switch tactics again and again. But nothing sticks because the script inside you hasn't changed. Desire isn't wrong, but desperate energy is incoherent. It makes noise where you need stillness. Chasing comes from fear. Receiving comes from embodiment. The ones who attract their vision aren't louder. They're quieter inside. They radiate calm certainty, not because they already have it, but because they already are it. And this isn't arrogance. It's energetic truth. It's not effort that brings the butterfly to your hand. It's stillness. It's the absence of striving. It's the quiet energy that says, I no longer need to chase what I already carry. And that's when it lands, not by chance, but by alignment. The backwards law isn't just a clever paradox. It's a mirror reflecting your most honest state. It reveals the hidden truth. What you chase runs, but what you embody arrives. To escape the desperation loop, you must stop grasping at the version of life you lack and begin living as if you've already arrived. The shift is subtle, but seismic, from yearning to being, from scarcity to sufficiency, from begging reality to broadcasting certainty. The universe does not reward exhaustion. It doesn't respond to how loudly you cry or how tirelessly you hustle. It responds to clarity, to the clean, unwavering signal of, I am. When that signal is pure, what once ran from you turns around, drawn to your center like a tide pulled by the moon. Because here's the truth no one wants to hear. Reality is never fooled. You can act confident, speak affirmations into the void, mask your fear in polished words, But the energy beneath your actions whispers louder than anything you say. Energy never lies. You've felt this before. Someone walks into the room, no words, no gestures, but something shifts. You feel it. Tension, confidence, unrest, power. That's not intuition. That's frequency perception. And just as you feel it in others, life feels it in you. No strategy will succeed if your internal world is vibrating with fear, urgency, or lack. You can't fake energetic congruence. Not to people, not to life. Your frequency speaks before you do. It delivers the truth of who you are, long before you take any action. The more you perform what you don't actually believe, the more resistance you summon. Pretending to be confident while feeling small only amplifies the feeling of being unworthy. Acting wealthy while fearing every dollar only deepens the internal imprint of poverty. You can wear a mask. You can mimic the behavior. But reality mirrors your essence, not your costume. And when your essence is rooted in lack, what life reflects is more of the distance between you and your vision. So where does change begin? Not in performance, not in pretending, but in coherence. True transformation begins when your inner world finally vibrates in harmony with the future you claim to desire. When your thoughts, your choices, your posture, your presence all begin to echo the state of already being the one who has, that's when reality bends. Not because you forced it, but because you became it. This isn't magic, it's energetic mechanics. When the fear dissolves, so does the gap. Desperation is replaced by quiet knowing. You're no longer reaching, you're receiving. The world, feeling that signal, begins to rearrange. Opportunities, people, synchronicities, all calibrated to match your certainty. You were never separate from what you wanted, only from the frequency of it. And the moment you carry the vibration of already having, life has no choice but to deliver. The universe doesn't deliver based on your effort. It delivers based on your essence. This is the hidden wisdom of the backwards law. Stop chasing, stop bridging the gap. Because the moment you become the version of yourself that no longer sees a gap, there is none. Energy doesn't lie. And when your being aligns with the outcome, not just in theory but in truth, life can only mirror what you have become. Once your energy speaks clearly, chasing becomes not only unnecessary, it becomes impossible. Because chasing is a silent confession, I don't yet have. And your subconscious takes that confession as a command. Not what you hope, but what you assume. You do not receive what you want, you receive what you believe to be true. This is the trap no one sees. You visualize, affirm, grind, and strive, but beneath every action lies an invisible whisper, I am still without. And so the universe echoes that energy back. When your desire is rooted in absence, every move becomes a reinforcement of the very lack you seek to escape. The harder you reach, the further it floats. Not because it's rejecting you, but because you've anchored your identity in the space of not having. Wealth, love, freedom, peace. They don't respond to force, they respond to familiarity. You must become a match, not through effort, but through embodiment. And embodiment doesn't mean pretending, it means remembering, returning to the version of you who already knows, who already walks as if the prayer is answered, because within it already is. This is why surface strategies often collapse. You can script the vision, recite affirmations, hustle with discipline. But if your core identity still breathes scarcity, you are building a mansion on sand. But when you assume success is already yours, you decide differently. You walk differently, not from fear, but from clarity, because it's never been about action alone. It's about the energy behind the action. The backwards law doesn't ask you to do nothing. It asks you to become something, to act not from longing, but from knowing, to speak not to convince life, but to express the truth you already carry. Let go of the chase, not because you don't care, but because you no longer need to prove. Desire isn't abandoned, it's simply refined, purified of urgency. Stripped of desperation, it becomes a quiet inner compass instead of a frantic race. When you no longer chase, you begin to attract with ease. When lack no longer owns your frequency, the universe cannot help but respond with abundance. because now you are finally still enough to receive. Once the illusion of chasing begins to dissolve, a quieter illusion waits just beneath it. The fear that letting go means giving up. But detachment is not weakness. It is not coldness nor indifference. It is not the absence of caring, but the presence of mastery. When you release the need to cling, you don't abandon your desires. You simply remove the resistance that keeps them at bay. Detachment isn't the end of feeling. It's the beginning of freedom. Rooted in the wisdom of the backwards law, detachment whispers a secret that the ego finds threatening. You don't have to chase what's already within reach. You only have to stop pushing it away. The more you relax your grip, the closer it moves toward you. Because the universe does not respond to force, it responds to faith. A deep, embodied knowing that what is meant for you has already begun its way to you. True detachment isn't passivity. It is the most radiant signal of inner certainty. It says, I do not need to beg, to prove, to grasp. I am already aligned. This is the energy of someone who understands that identity precedes outcome, that who you are being in this moment shapes every future you walk into. The detached one does not crumble in the face of delay. They don't shrink in rejection. They adjust without drama and continue forward without losing center. Stillness becomes their shield, grace becomes their gravity, and life begins to organize itself around their unwavering frequency. The ancient Stoics knew this truth. You may not command external events, but you command the energy you meet them with. And in that inner power lies your leverage. Detachment means stepping back from emotional reactivity, not to suppress feeling, but to prevent fleeting emotion from becoming your master. The one who can remain calm while the world storms around them is the one who bends reality without saying a word. Because peace no longer lives outside them, it radiates from within. Like a mountain unmoved by the winds, you begin to live from a center that cannot be shaken. And suddenly, everything shifts. The moment you stop needing the outcome draws closer. Not because you gave up, but because you stop resisting. You no longer grasp. You no longer demand. You begin to receive. In this quiet expectancy, the universe meets you halfway. And often, it brings more than you ever imagined. Not because you chased it, but because you finally stopped telling life it was missing. This is the paradox of mastery. When you let go of control, you become powerful. Because now your power doesn't come from willpower. It comes from alignment. From an energy that no longer says, I need, but breathes, I already am. And from here, the next truth becomes inevitable. A new awareness unfolds. Every experience you live is not shaped by what you desire, but by who you believe you are. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are. And until that inner identity shifts, the outer world has no reason to change. This is where the backwards law continues its quiet work. The harder you try to build a life from an identity not designed to hold it, the more resistance you meet. Not because you're unworthy, but because you're misaligned. Your identity is not the image you show the world. It's the silent story you tell yourself in the unseen chambers of your mind. It whispers things like, I'm not enough. Love is dangerous. Money always escapes me. And your reality, loyal to your beliefs, echoes them back until you notice. You can recite affirmations. You can chase new goals. But if the subconscious blueprint remains the same, nothing outside you will change for long. Because true transformation doesn't begin by stacking new habits on top of old wounds. It begins when you rewrite the program itself. So ask yourself gently but truthfully, who is the version of me that already lives the life I long for? What does that version think, feel, believe? Now begin living from that identity, not as a game of pretend, but as a bold, energetic declaration. This is who I am now. Your body will feel it. Your posture will shift. Your voice will steady. Your decisions will no longer wobble with self-doubt. And as the inner identity aligns, life has no choice but to rearrange itself to match you. Striving without identity alignment creates friction. But when you embody the frequency of the version of you who already has it, resistance dissolves. Not because you overpowered reality, but because you became congruent with it. You stopped dragging the past into the future. You stop negotiating with old beliefs that were never meant to hold the life you're stepping into. Instead of reaching, you radiate. Instead of chasing, you become. Identity doesn't follow results. Results follow identity. Always. And once that silent blueprint is rewritten, the house of your life begins to rebuild. Brick by brick, effortlessly, into something that finally feels like home. When your identity finally aligns with the frequency of your desired life, you begin to see something startling. The struggle you once called necessary was simply the result of misalignment. It was never that you lacked discipline. You simply lacked coherence. When you act from who you truly are, there is no strain, only flow. And here again, the backwards law makes itself known. The more force you apply, the more resistance you generate. You're not meant to battle the river of life. You are meant to move with its current. And only when you stop swimming upstream does life begin to carry you, gently, powerfully, precisely. Forcing outcomes isn't dedication. It's often fear in disguise, a strained relationship, a draining opportunity, a plan that weighs more than it moves. These are not signs of commitment, they are signs of misalignment. When you're in harmony, you don't kick down doors, they open as you arrive. The path of least resistance is not laziness, it is divine intelligence. Water doesn't argue with the rock, it flows around, over, through. And eventually it shapes the mountain itself. True manifestation doesn't require pushing, it requires precision. Act when the moment speaks, not when pressure screams. Move when your soul says yes, not when fear says hurry. In stillness, clarity sharpens. You begin to see what is yours, and what was never meant to be chased. The grip loosens, and reality, once slippery, begins to respond. This is surrender, not as defeat, but as the highest form of inner power. You stop trying to control it all, because now you remember, you were never meant to. This shift from force to flow is not mental, it is energetic, a recalibration at the level of being. After the storm of pushing quiets, a clarity begins to rise. Decisions feel lighter, movement becomes smoother, and the constant weight of I must dissolves into the gentle knowing of I am. Flow is not weakness, it is the purest form of power, not reactive, but responsive, not frantic, but aligned. Like a sculptor revealing form by removing what doesn't belong, you stop building your life through pressure and begin unveiling it through alignment. Many stay stuck not from lack of effort, but from refusing to release what no longer fits. Outdated dreams, old versions of love, unnatural paths built on pride or fear. But flow whispers, let go of what drains you. That is not failure, it is wisdom. You stop pounding on closed doors because now you trust. What is for you cannot be missed. Through the lens of the backwards law, this is not escapism. It is responsibility, elevated. When resistance falls, the mind clears. You become more intuitive, more precise, more powerful by being less forceful. In this space, you do less, yet life multiplies your results. Opportunities find you, not because you chase them down, but because you are now standing in the place where they naturally land. And in that silence, that sacred stillness, intelligence begins to speak. Not through noise, but through direction. Not through panic, but through divine rhythm. You do not lose power by flowing. You return to the highest expression of it. Because truthfully, you were never meant to chase. You were meant to become. You were never meant to chase. You were meant to become. This ancient law, once buried beneath the noise of centuries, now rises like a silent truth that was always there. Stop running toward life and let life run toward you. The moment you shift your identity, release the need to control, and surrender to the rhythm of flow, you activate a force beyond effort, a magnetic power that needs no convincing, no more forcing, no more gripping, no more chasing what's already trying to reach you. There is a version of you who does not strive. They simply resonate, and in that resonance, life can finally find you. Step into stillness, anchor yourself in presence. Let your energy speak louder than your words. Let the universe recognize you not by what you want, but by who you've become. And then, watch everything you've ever longed for begin to chase you. If this message resonated with something deep inside you, don't keep it to yourself. Like, share, and subscribe. Not for me, but to keep yourself connected to the reminders you already know to be true. Your journey is sacred, and it's just beginning. See you in the next video. Until then, stay in flow. Ready to stop chasing and start attracting? Subscribe for more quantum truths and silent awakenings. Let your becoming begin.